Okay, without any further overdue, we'll basically give some introductory remarks in terms of this webinar, wherein we are all well aware of the energy sector, which is actually undergoing major transition, both at a global as well as national scale, as renewable energy is basically taking center stage year in, year out. And we have seen in the country, South Africa, there has been substantial transformation in the energy landscape, where there has been a lot of regulatory reforms, and electricity supply landscape is actually increasingly becoming decentralized, as it has been the case, and we've seen this, and it's becoming even much more competitive. And we are also aware of the role that sustainable energy is in terms of affordability and reliability, that it is a lifeblood of economy. And municipalities are basically well positioned to drive this sustainable local energy transition. And also some of the drivers for these transitions, as we have seen that there are issues around climate change, issues around Paris Agreement. We now see some floods in Germany, Belgium, other parts of Europe, some severe drought in some parts of Africa, some floods in Sudan and other parts of east and western part of Africa. And so these are some of the signs of climate change. And in South Africa, we do have got high solar irradiance, as we all know, and we know that the solar PV price is actually declining, which makes it more competitive compared to fossil fuel. And as a country at this point in time, we still have over 80% of our electricity, which is generated from fossil fuel resources. And we are aware that by 2030, the picture is most likely to be different due to the IRP and allocation of energy technologies between 2019 and 2030. In terms of, again, transition, we have seen on the RP that over 11,000 megawatt of coal-fired power plants capacity will have been decommissioned by 2030 in accordance to IRP. And chances are that some of the mines in Mpumalanga area will be closed. So what we have to ask ourselves is that what does that mean to the employees in this particular coal-fired power stations that would have been closed by or decommissioned by 2030? What will this mean to the surrounding communities in areas where there are mines which by 2030 some of them might have been closed? What will be the impact of this transition in terms of jobs, in terms of local economy, in terms of poverty, as well as impacts in terms of health of the local community? So as we're gonna start this project, this webinar rather, we are basically aiming at contributing towards a more coherent understanding of the roles, some of the tools, and the needs of local government by focusing precisely on the plans for one of the municipalities in Mpumalanga, which is Steve Tshwete Local Municipalities. And of course, we're going to do this by allowing some of the corresponding inputs from Eskom, from CHIPS, as well as Green Economic Cluster. And of course, the focus is to gain clarity of what local government can feasibly do to ensure their own functionality, and again, to ensure optimal delivery outcomes and facilitate local economic development as the coal value chain is most likely to decline in line with the national plans, which is the IRP. So having said that, the structure of this webinar, what we are going to do this afternoon is that we are going to go to the first presentation by Steve Tshwete Municipality, which is going to present just energy transition policies, plans, and initiatives. And from there, we'll get into the panel discussion on local government risks as well as opportunities by Eskom, TIPS, as well as Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency. And this session for the panel discussion will basically be facilitated by Louise from WWF South Africa. And we'll get into questions and answers and closing remarks. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna, before I ask Steve Tshwete to present, I will ask Lauren Hermanas to basically introduce herself as a co-chair and give some introductory remarks before we get into first presentation, as well as Louise, if you can do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Silas. And if I could just trouble you, there seems to be a funny setting with the video where we're seeing our colleagues, I believe it's a ceiling, Jane's ceiling, that's being projected onto the screen. So if you could maybe on your side adjust the view so we focus on the speakers. Silas. Oh dear. We seem to have lost him. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you everyone for being very excited about this workshop. I have to say that, you know, in the process of inviting people to join this workshop, it's had a little bit of a snowball and we keep it quite small. But I think the appetite for this discussion and you know, for bringing everybody together to create sort of conversation and coherence in the work that's being done, the plethora of work that's being done to support the greening of Mpumalanga as a province, there was really a clearly articulated need and a lot of enthusiasm for it. So we're very happy to have you all here, and thank you very much for your time and attention. I know we are all running from meeting to meeting. So this is the fifth in a series of webinars that we are convening as a collaboration between the project that I'm running, which is the Just Urban Transitions project, between WWF South Africa and SALGA. We've worked with a number of other partners. For this workshop, we're working with GreenCape, has played a very good supportive role in bringing some of our speakers into the conversation for us as well. We've also worked with Sustainable Energy Africa. And really what we've aimed to do with these webinars is to foreground those very specific risks that emerge at a subnational scale and opportunities at a subnational scale within the just transition in South Africa, as well as role and contribution in this process. In the context of Mpumalanga, considering not only local government, but also the role of government, considering the different contributions of the district municipalities in this process. So I won't say much more about that because we have lots of exciting contributions. I will just say to our facilitator, Louise, thank you very much for leading this and for holding us all together. I'm sure there'll be many diverse and interesting inputs, and I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself and also to get the conversation going. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks Silas and Lauren for the warm welcome and the context setting. I think there's very little that I need to add. Perhaps to say at the outset that really the intention of this webinar is to start unpacking and really embed the challenges of the municipalities overall in Mpumalanga, but for today's purposes in Steve Tshwete. So what are they doing? And as Lauren and Silas also alluded to, what needs to happen to ensure that we have alignment between all the different stakeholders across tiers of government, across different organizations, to ensure that we get the just outcome that we'd like to see. So, as Silas has said, we're going to kickstart the session with a presentation by Mr. Nkozozo Kubefu. He's the Director of Electricity Services from the Department of Infrastructure Services, Steve Tshwete Municipality. And he will be sharing with us some of the risks, the work and the required support for navigating the just transition at a local scale. And he'll be focusing particularly on the opportunities in the electricity delivery. And of course, everybody knows that Steve Tshwete is also one of the municipalities in Mpumalanga that will be highly impacted by the planned coal power plant closures as South Africa moves to low carbon and less fossil fuel intensive economy. His presentation will be followed by 3 inputs by the Just Transition Office at Eskom, by TIPS, and then finally by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government and GreenCape. I'll say a bit more about those presentations and the speakers once Mr. Kubefo has finalized or presented his slides for us. So over to you, Mr. Kubefo. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today. And Silas, I presume you're going to be sharing the slides.
Hi, Louis. Just want to check with Ntokozo. Does he want me to share the slides, or you will be able to share from his side?
Thank you very much, Louis. Thank you, Silas. I think I will be able to share the slide from my side. Thank you for the opportunity. I can. If
Excellent.
maybe...
Over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Luis, again. I think you can all see my my slide. I'm going to try to put it on the presentation mode. I believe you can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. I think you've already introduced me. My name is Ntokozo Kubefo. I'm working at Steve Tshwete Local Municipality under Infrastructure Services, working as a Director, Electrical Engineering Services. I will be moving forward. The content of my presentation, I will dwell on the situation analysis and then the greenhouse gas inventory that we've done in 2017-2018, the impact that will come with the closure of the mines as well as the power stations, the renewable energy, the opportunities that comes with it, as well as the revenue enhancement strategy that we are planning, funding and financial sustainability for the urban infrastructure, and the recommendation after. Starting on the first slide, looking at the population profile on the situation analysis, I think I felt like I need to put these two indicators that I took from the census, the latest census that was done from State SA. That indicates the growth and the population within Steve Tshwete Local Municipality. On figure number 1, I indicated the population size. Depending on each and every year when they were doing the stats, you can see that we've been moving very high, starting from 1996 up until 2016. And then you can see on the next figure number 2, the growth rate that indicates that our growth rate at the moment was around 4% as Steve Tshwete Local Municipality. So this slide that I'm beaming now, it's just the indication of what I just indicated with regard to the population of 278,749 and the population growth of 4.4% that was displayed before. Again, I also want to touch on the issue of the municipality itself. Because I think most municipalities have got this problem. We as a municipality, we have to render the services, and part of the services we have to take care of those vulnerable people in our communities who cannot afford certain things, and as a result, we have to make sure that we've got a free basic services that we are rendering as the municipality. Steve Tshwete Local Municipality, we've got more than 86 households that have got access to basic services. That means electricity, water, sanitation. We've got about more than 68,000. Out of that, more than 68,000, we've got 18,000 households that are receiving free basic services. I think, as the former speaker indicated, that the closure of the mine and the closure of the power station will definitely force the mines around our jurisdiction to be closed as well, and that will take away a lot of jobs from the community around Steve Tshwete Local Municipality, and that will definitely going to increase our indigent list to those people who are receiving free basic services. So at the moment, the free basic services, we are we are utilizing our 70% of equitable shares to make sure that we can able to render these services. In terms of the industrials, I think this is a well-known thing that Steve Tshwete is one of those municipalities that is within that are being driven. The economy is being driven by the mines, as well as the mostly by the mines that are supplying the power stations that will be closing in the near future. We do have some steel companies. Obviously, they are also contributing to our economy, but they're not that much. We all know that, like I said, the Steve Tshwete is within those areas. We are part of that area where we've got, I think, about 4 power stations that are within us, of which it is Henrina, Komati, as well as Arnott Power Station that are within our jurisdiction. Mining sector is a major contributor to the Steve Tshwete economy. It will definitely have a big impact when the power station is being closed. As we indicated before, that there's a direct link between the coal mining as well as the Eskom power station. They are getting their coal directly from the mine so that they can able to work and function. So there will be a massive loss of job should this happen, and unfortunately it will happen. We cannot change that. Now, going forward, in terms of the greenhouse gas inventory, Steve Tshwete Local Municipality updated the 2012 greenhouse gas inventory or emission inventory during 2017-2018 financial year. The work was undertaken as part of the city commitment to a low emission development at a strategy under the urban low emission development strategy. So on this one, that is one of our policy that we look at. We decided to make sure that I put it as part of this presentation, just to show some few indication on what is happening within our municipality. So as you can see on the next slide, I've got a figure that talks to the basic emission by subsection. We indicated the 2012, the study that was done in 2012, and the study was done in 2017-2018. I'm going to just want to highlight the energy industry, which is, I believe it's a purple color. If you look at it on this particular table, on this particular diagram, you can see that in 2012, the contribution from the energy sector was a little bit higher compared to the contribution that was made in 2017-2018. So meaning there is a little bit of improvement in terms of the emission produced by energy industrials. And again, there is a reason for that, obviously. On the next slide, I've got them just a continuation of what I was discussing, and the indication that's showing what I was also explaining on the previous table, to say you can see that the majority of energy is consumed in the manufacturing and construction sector, and is 65% following the transport sector, of which it is 24%, with the agriculture, which is 5%, and the residential 3%, sectors that are making up most of the remainder, of which is in figure number 2. I'll show you figure number 2. So, but here just the indication that we talk about the closure of the power stations, but it also, there is a lot of contribution to that. For example, the power station is linked with the mine sector. The mining sector, they are using a lot of vehicles. That also a very big contributor to the emission that is happening. And then furthermore, in terms of the municipality as infrastructure department, the movement and the loading of our roads is becoming more and more during this time, when there is a lot of transportation done by the heavy vehicles transporting coal from one place to another. So that's one of the major things. But as part of energy, gas is part of energy. That is why I included this slide. So if I move on, so this is the figure 2 that I was talking about, that give an explanation in terms of the energy consumption and the energy related emission by sector. As you can see that we've got transport. Like I said, transport is part and parcel of what is happening, unfortunately, because people are moving day to day from work to their homes, and we've got vehicles that are transporting some of this material, raw material, that are being used in our power stations. So this is part of the of my indicators, as I indicated before, where we are indicating that most of the energy in Steve Tshwete is consumed in the form of electricity, which is largely generated by coal-fired power station, and the main use is the manufacturing sector. So we've seen that most of the companies within our jurisdiction, they were using a lot of energy. I can name few companies because we do have still companies that are working in our jurisdiction, and those steel companies, they are using a lot of energy, and some of those steel companies, they are getting directly power from Eskom, and some we are supplying them, but they are using a lot of energy to run their operations. So these are some of the indicators. I don't want to dwell much on the basic emission as on the greenhouse gas inventory. It was just an indication on what is happening so far. On this slide, I was just wanted to highlight the issue of the combined STLM, Steve Tshwete Local Municipality, and the Eskom electricity sales by sector. You can see that on this particular table, the industry that is buying more energy, or maybe that is purchasing more energy, is the industrial, like I indicated, that they are using more energy. And then we've got others like residential, of which is also contributing a lot, about 2.4%. All right, and now going to the impact, Chairperson, we cannot deny that the mining activities that are within our jurisdiction are beneficial in terms of the economic development. However, the impact is huge. I think as the municipality and those people who are more considerate in terms of the environmental impact. So we as the municipality, I think we normally had meetings with these mining companies, and most of the time there is only one topic around it: the contamination of streams in terms of water. On the other hand, we've got the power station, which are contributing on the air pollution. Those are the impacts that are happening every day. And obviously, when the power station is being closed and the mine is being closed, that will mean those two factors will go away, and then we'll have clean air. Then we'll have clean air around Middleburg. We'll have clean water around Middleburg, or maybe Steve Tshwete Local Municipality and other areas. But on the other hand, the closure of the power station will have a negative impact on the economy in various ways. Like I indicated, that we've got many people here in Steve Tshwete Local Municipality. In fact, if you look at the community of Steve Tshwete Local Municipality, it's built up by people who are not originally from Middleburg, not from Steve Tshwete, not from Middleburg, not from Henrena, not from Komati, but those people, they only came here because of job opportunities. So if you look at the issue of the closure of this mine, those people will lose jobs, and easily this town, or Middleburg town, or Henrena town, can easily become a ghost town, because that means most people will leave and go back wherever they come from, and there's a massive loss in terms of economy as the municipality. Again, I think point number 3, I've already touched on it, to say the mine closure is likely to impact the income and vulnerability of the local population overall. So I said it before, to say we've got more people who are relying on the jobs of on the mining sector, who are working there, and those people definitely won't have income, and that will definitely increase our indigent list as a municipality and putting more pressure on our free basic services. So at the moment, I indicated earlier on, just to when I was giving the situation analysis, that we've got about 18,000 people who are receiving the free basic services. So that will definitely change when these two industries close down. So and we'll have more to think about in terms of the free basic services. In terms of the renewable energy, actually we need to understand that even if we might not like the renewable energy, but unfortunately this is the future. If you look at South Africa at the moment, we are talking about the closure of the power station. I think what we need to do, we need to adopt and try to move on, to think ahead on what we need to do in future to make sure that we can able to supplement what is happening at the moment at Eskom. If we look at the issue of the renewable energy, most municipalities have started with, we had numerous meetings with other municipalities and government in terms of the small scale embedded generators and all those things. That's another major part which will definitely reduce the revenue of the municipality for each and every municipality if it hasn't started. Unfortunately, here in Steve Tshwete Local Municipality already has been started. Most people, they whenever there is load shedding, they will go around and purchase solar panels and they will put it in their homes. So it definitely have a high impact in terms of the energy sales, in terms of the consumption, even though we encourage the low usage in terms of energy, but it also have an impact because municipalities, particularly like Steve Tshwete, the electricity sector is one of the department that is contributing about 39% to the municipality in terms of the revenue collection. So definitely it will just drop the revenue of each and every municipality. But I also need to indicate that we as the local government, we feel like we don't have authority on other things, even though we can generate the electricity bylaws, we can do the bylaws and do other stuff. But we believe that we also need some intervention from provincial and national government in that regard to make sure that the municipality does not collapse because of the revenue issues. So at the moment we are working wild with Eskom. We are paying our accounts and everything, but we manage to pay our accounts because we can able to collect. So if we can't collect, and then it becomes a problem. Definitely that will also decrease the usage in terms of the Eskom accounts. So I wanted just to highlight that and move on with a second point. I wanted to highlight the issue of the opportunities that comes with the renewable energy. Like I said, that unfortunately, if you look at the renewable energy is the future, everyone will go there, and then we need to think ahead to say what needs to be done. This is part of the renewable energy. I think I've already talked to this slide. I can move on. Part of the renewable energy, I decided to put this slide because I think that will sum up in terms of the renewable energy and the way and other projects that we are doing as a municipality. Steve Tshwete Local Municipality obviously started with the energy efficient demand side management. That was started way back in 2014. We are doing the project just to make sure that we are doing a retrofit in all our area lighting fittings, including the street lights, the high mast lights. We are changing all those to an energy efficient fittings, the LED. By so doing, if you can go to each and every municipality, the area lighting, as much as it is part of our mandate to deliver to our community, but it's actually the cost. It does not bring any money to the municipality. Yes, we need to do it. It's necessary because people must have the area lighting and is part of what people are paying for in terms of the rates of the municipal rates, but it doesn't bring the physical money to the municipality. I think we need to take care of that. That is why we felt as a municipal that this one we need to make sure that we spend as less as we can in terms of the finances. The alternative energy sources. The utility Eskom might not like me about this one, but I think it's a fact that we are facing to say we need to think as the local government to say what needs to be done as well to supplement on what we are getting from Eskom. Apart from the fact that some of the municipalities cannot afford the high tariff that Eskom is selling the energy to us, but also just to make sure that they will also assist Eskom in terms of the RP, to make sure that they are also we are also not consuming a lot of power from their side, but we can also generate something from our side. Solar and gas obviously is the option for the area like Middleburg, for the area like Henrena, for the area like Komati, where we've done our feasibility study. We've noticed that we can able to generate power from the solar system, and we can, if we do that, we can able to address some other issues and some other impact that came with the closure of the power station in terms of the socio-economic. We can able to create jobs. We can have some small companies that can able to benefit from this in terms of the job creation. Maybe just to talk on the issue of the revenue enhancement strategy, of which it is part and parcel of the renewable energy, like I indicated before. I think we are one of the municipalities very like in terms of managing our electricity. At the moment, we are sitting at 7% in terms of the energy losses. That is the combination of the technical losses and non-technical losses. I think we are way below the NERSA threshold or the norm in terms of the losses, and we are doing that because we managed to achieve this because of the certain things that we are doing in managing our energy. And number one, we are trying to do away with the ordinary meter, those old meters, the analog meters. We are trying to move away from that. We are installing the smart ready meters, the prepaid meters, trying to make sure that we monitor those meters. We are also installing the bulk check meter. That is very important to our Eskom intake points, just to make sure that whatever that we are paying for is what we've used in terms of the energy from Eskom. And another thing that is very interesting is the issue of I indicated the issue of the indigent. That is very important, the issue of the free basic services. Part of the intervention that is done by the municipality is to try to reduce money that we are using on free basic services, but by not lowering the standard that we are rendering. And that is why we decided to forge ahead with a free basic alternative energy, where we're going to put the solar panels for individual households, particularly those who are far away from the grid. That's a plan that we are planning to do.
Mr. Kobeko, quickly from our side, you must start wrapping up, please.
Okay, I think my presentation is too long. Thank you very much. In terms of the funding, we are trying to make sure that we can able to sustain ourselves in future. Like I indicated, that energy, particularly in this municipality, is one of the drivers of the revenue. So in terms of funding, we really need some intervention from other sectors, particularly the local government as well as the national government. I indicated before that we've got some program or project that we are doing in terms of the energy efficiency, but we also need some we need to be able to get funding in terms of so that we can able to forge ahead with those projects like the energy efficiency, lighting, like the free basic alternative energy, like I indicated in terms of our strategy. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Apology for taking too long.
Louis, you are on mute. Louis, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, apologies. I didn't see that I was on mute. Thank you, Mr. Kabefu, for your very comprehensive overview of your municipality's responses to this imperative of decarbonizing your electricity system, while of course on the other hand you need to address your energy security. You've got the additional challenge of addressing the impacts of coal power plant closures on your economy in general, but of course particularly in the poor and the vulnerable. But you know, as you pointed out as well, such a transition presents with opportunities. I think all of these issues that you've raised will be addressed in some way or other by the respondents that will now provide their inputs. I'm sure people have questions, but there will be an opportunity to put questions to all the panelists after the respondents have provided their inputs. So just quickly, Eskom today will be presented by Ms. Mandy Rambaros. She's the head of Eskom's Just Transition Office. I don't think she needs any further introduction. Speaking on behalf of TIPS is Gayle Montmason-Claire. He's the senior economic analyst there who leads the organization's work on sustainable growth. And then from the Mpumalanga Provincial Government, we have Mr. Nati Nkunyani. He's the Senior Manager for Economic Policy and Planning in the Department of Economic Development and Tourism of the Mpumalanga Province. And then with him, Johan Strydom, who's the Senior Energy Analyst focusing on municipal support and the technical lead on all energy-related topics at GreenCape. Now, before I hand over to Mandy, I've asked all three of the respondents to provide firstly, a high-level overview of how their organizations are contributing towards a just transition in the Mpumalanga region. I've requested them to share some of their thoughts on how they work and support coal-dependent municipalities in general, but Steve Tshwete in particular, to roll out or expand or improve their existing initiatives by the municipality, but also to overcome some of these challenges that we've just heard. And very importantly, how to unlock funding to support these initiatives. And then lastly, how they see their work supporting better alignment between different tiers of government to support impact at scale. Mandy, if I can ask you to start the ball rolling. I know that you have to leave us at 4, so over to you.
Hi, Louise. Noella speaking. Mandy just dropped off the call, so I will provide a quick presentation on her behalf.
Thank you. So over to you. And I think, Mr. Kabefu, if you can just stop screen sharing, yeah, then Eskom can have the floor.
Thank you very much. Please just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you once again. Like I mentioned, my name is Noella. I'm from the Just Energy Transition Office, and I will be presenting on our Just Energy Transition strategy and some of the work that we plan to do in the Mpumalanga area. Just some of the content that I'll be covering in the presentation, just what the definition of a just energy transition is, looking at the global and national context, the strategy itself, and some of the socioeconomic benefits. So this one, This slide I will whiz through, but it's basically looking at what we consider as a just energy transition from an Eskom perspective. It looks at, or it refers to the transition towards a low carbon economy, transitioning from a coal base towards more cleaner energy. We're looking at it being more climate resilient, and also looking at so that it doesn't impede socioeconomic development. We're also making sure that this just energy transition is not going to be a sudden shift in economic activity, but it will occur over a phased manner over time. From a global landscape perspective, there has been a shift towards cleaner energy, and this is driven mainly by environmental as well as social impacts. And a lot of funders are divesting from new coal projects, and renewable energy costs have decreased quite quickly, and they're far more cheaper than new coal. The just transition will also drive economic growth. We're looking at the development of renewable energy-led industrialization programs, new and cleaner technologies that will also enable local manufacturing. And Eskom also plans to partner with the communities to develop the just energy transition activities. What the just energy transition is not is an exclusive transition that seeks to marginalize the majority. It's also not about meeting global pressures at the expense of local national imperatives. And it's also not about exporting revenue and jobs. What's important to note is that coal is going to play a significant role in the electricity generation for a while. However, the jet will occur in a phased manner over time. So this slide basically shows our just energy transition on a slide. It focuses on 4 elements in 4 main areas over the next 5 years to drive the net zero emissions as well as the social impact goals. The first being the just elements. With the just elements, we conducted socioeconomic studies at the Komati, Hendrina, and Grootfontein power stations. We will also be conducting more studies for the other 7 power stations. But basically what the studies look at is how will the shutting down of the power stations impact the local communities, the province as a whole, and the country as well. And we are looking at how we can create jobs and how we can also create opportunities for local manufacture as well as industrialization in these affected areas. We're working very closely with the DTIC, Minerals Council, as well as the local municipalities to ensure that we leverage on the opportunities that the shutting down of the power stations would provide the local areas. Looking at our energy elements, we are looking at repowering our plants. We will be prioritizing Komati Power Station for this year, and this is because we only have 1 unit running at the power station currently. And we're looking at repowering this power station with solar PV, with battery storage, and then gas at a later stage. And it's important to note that we can also repower other stations as they are still running. We don't have to wait for them to be shut down before we can start installing some of our renewable and cleaner energies on site. We also plan to repurpose the plants. We're looking at the assembly of microgrid plants at the sites, or even repurposing to the plants to become training facilities, for example, in future. We plan to accelerate various renewable energy technologies, which include the wind and solar. We're looking at areas in the Northern, Western, and Eastern Cape, which have the best solar and wind resources, and we plan to build plants in the areas. And then we're also looking at storage options, microgrids, and also upgrading our transmission grid in order to connect our renewable energy to the grid in the future. Another section we're looking at is the transition. So in order to implement or build any of these projects, we're definitely looking at funding options. We are looking to also form various partnerships to get these projects off the ground. And we're also working on what we call the JET transaction, which is basically the background is that as part of the Paris Agreement, some of the developed countries are compelled to assist developing countries to provide financing to assist with the climate change challenges. So we're also looking at providing an accelerated decarbonization plan in order to get financing for our projects. And lastly, we have different enablers, our cooperation agreements. Like I mentioned, we're working with the likes of DTIC, SASOL, and other government organizations to assist with our plan. We're also making sure we're aligned to policy, and HR is also running the change management for our employees. Just looking at a global perspective, the price of renewable energies have declined significantly. This is your solar, your onshore and offshore wind, as well as battery, have declined with about 60% since 2015, and they're expected to decline even further by 30% to 2025. We've also have a lot of investors who are scaling up investment on SDG related assets as well as clean energy. And we've also received numerous counterparties indicating that they are interested to support our just energy transition strategy. As I mentioned previously, we have a list of pipeline projects. Some of these are in Mpumalanga area and others are across the country. We're looking at solar projects, as I mentioned, at Komati Power Station and other plants. We're looking at expanding our Syria wind farm in the Western Cape with our solar panels. We're also looking at wind, like I mentioned, Kleinsia, Aberdeen, and other wind projects. We would like to also build gas at Komati Power Station of 1,000 megawatts, as well as at Richards Bay. And then Komati as well, we plan to build a battery storage that has a storage capacity of 244 megawatts per hour. And then microgrids as well as a pump storage. But in total, we plan to build, obviously with partners, about 8,000 megawatts of new capacity, which is clean and renewable in the next 5 years. So looking at the social aspects, as I mentioned, we conducted socioeconomic impact studies for Komati, Grootfontein, as well as Hendrina power stations, the two being in the Steve Tshwete Local Municipality. And we've also secured funding for other studies. But what we focused on, or what we investigated, were different aspects. We looked at people, we looked at the economy, as well as the environment. And we investigated these aspects on a local, regional, as well as national context. We looked at employment, skills, community sustainability, as well as economic sustainability, the business impact, government revenue, as well as property. Then we looked at the people aspects, looking at the quality of life of the individuals in these areas, the out-migration, living conditions, the family ties, access to services, all the possible social ills, as well as the income levels. And lastly, looking at the environmental side, we looked at the land uses, the quality of the environment, as well as the access to natural resources. We conducted various engagements with different stakeholder groups. We engaged with the communities, business, as well as social facilities, NGOs, local government, employee household surveys, as well as organized labor. And some of the concerns were that there's going to be an increase in the social ills in the area, while there might be a positive opportunities from the repowering and repurposing plans that we have for the power stations in these areas. And they asked that we also just give them enough time so that they can prepare accordingly and for the shutdown and the jobs and opportunities that may come from the repurposing and repowering of the power stations. So we are currently in the process of developing a mitigation strategy for Komati Power Station. It's almost complete, but the philosophy we used when formulating the strategy is that it needs to be aligned with the JET transition, as well as our strategy as well. So we need to make sure that we're aligned to ensure that what we have planned for these power stations are in line with our overall strategy. And then also looking at the integration of the Just Energy Transition Strategy, the Eskom strategy. So looking at national as well as the Eskom strategy. We also wanted to ensure that we have partnerships and we collaborate with the local municipalities as well as the communities when implementing these projects. We need to be also aligned with the government priorities and the strategic objectives. And we also wanted to incorporate the lessons learned from the coal-fired power stations that have previously been repurposed in other countries as well. As I mentioned earlier, that Komati Power Station is going to be our flagship project. We plan to demonstrate our transition ambitions at this power station. Komati is nearing the end of its life, and we plan to repower and repurpose this power station, which may offer various opportunities. For example, it offers an opportunity to pilot using the existing Eskom land. So there's a lot of land at the Komati power station. So we plan to install agrivoltaics as well as microgrids. So agrivoltaics are basically a combination of agriculture as well as energy generation. And then we're going to develop them in areas that have already established grid infrastructure, for example, the Komati power station. The microgrids as well, we're focusing on containerized microgrids, and these can be transported anywhere in the country to areas that need electricity. So we plan to have a generation site at Komati Power Station. We're also looking at completing the engineering studies to confirm the capacities of solar PV and battery that we can install in the next 12 to 28 months at Komati Power Station. So these images here below just show the containerized microgrids as well as the agrivoltaics. This is my last slide. So basically, if we do nothing, there will be an increase in unemployment. There may be a skills drain. Apologies. Oh, sorry, what did I do? Sorry for that. Let me just, it's the last slide, apologies. If we do nothing, there will be an increase in unemployment. We'll have a loss of manufacturing capabilities. We'll have poor environmental health, negative growth, divestment from our country, and there'll also be an increase in costs of inefficient generation. However, if we adopt a just energy transition strategy, we will promote reindustrialization. We'll have new skills in the country and new expertise. There'll be various environmental benefits, positive economic growth, as well as access to and affordable financing opportunities. And lastly, security of electricity supply. Thank you very much. That's the last of the presentation.
Thank you, Noella, for stepping into Mandy's shoes very competently. I know that you also need to drop off. I just want to give an opportunity to the group if anybody has a question that they would like to ask Noella before she leaves us. There's no obligation, but if there's a burning issue that you'd like to ask her, now is the opportunity. Well, Noella, it seems to me you're off the hook. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Louise. Have a good afternoon. Yes.
Great. And then I think we're on to our next presentation, which is gay law. And TIPS has done a lot of engagement with stakeholder groups in Mpumalanga, and I'm hopeful that he'll be sharing some of the interesting findings that they've had in their engagements with the larger group today. Welcome, Gaylo, and over to you.
Thanks a lot, Louise, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for the invitation to be part of this workshop. As promised to Louise and Lauren and Silas, I didn't prepare slides because I really wanted to try and respond to what was shared by the municipality. I'll try and maybe share a couple of slides here and there if the technology allows me. Otherwise, I'll just carry on. Maybe just as a way of introduction first. So as it was introduced, I work for Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies, which is TIPS, where I lead our work around sustainability and just transition. And we've been deeply involved as an economic policy research institute in the discussions and the debates and the thinking around just transition in the country. doing a lot of work on understanding what is this just transition animal that we're dealing with, what are the challenges, what are the requirements. And we have been doing a lot of work at national level, primarily looking at the existing vulnerabilities in the country, as well as potential resilience plans. Currently doing a lot of work for the newly established Presidential Climate Commission. But we also been doing a fair amount of work now at the local level in Steve Tshwete and in Mpumalanga, jointly with partners, with Naledi, with Groundwork, but also with Peter Wilpo, as he is here as well today. And we've been looking at the dynamics at the local level and engaging with stakeholders at the local level to try and get solutions emerging from that. And I think it really speaks to what was shared by Ntokozo from the municipality in terms of the challenges, obviously from his perspective around energy and electricity. So the first thing to consider in my mind really is the extent of the challenges, and take quite a broad view in terms of what is this just transition kind of throwing at the municipality or any municipality, but in our case, of course, Steve Tshwete. As was pointed out, the starting point is difficult. We have municipalities and municipalities that are heavily under-resourced, and that's true, I think, nationwide. But certainly the case, in Steve Tshwete, you've got, revenues which are but below 7,000 Rand per resident. Okay. Per comparison, a metropolitan area is in excess of 11,000. Okay, so it's quite less than a metropolitan area, but it is a bit more than the kind of average in the country, which is below 5. But it does give you an idea that first, the revenues are constraints. The financial model, as was pointed out, is heavily reliant on electricity sales. About 40% of collection is in gross terms is electricity sales. And the service provision in many cases is not handled singularly by the municipality. And certainly in the case of Steve Tshwete, Andrina is providing some of the services, mines contribute, as well through the social and labor plans and their kind of local interventions. So the scale of the challenge in terms of the finances and delivering public services is of course there. Then you've got an issue in terms of the employment and the economic activities. And I think it's striking for me to stress, if you look at employment in Steve Tshwete, and I say only being mindful, that only 18% of employment is directly in mining, which is, in terms of coal mining, is the second largest after Mpumalanga, but it's only 18%. So you have 80% of employment that's not directly in mining. If you look at economic activities, which is your gross value addition, it's 37% that's directly in mining. But more than a third, but still a fair amount that's not directly in mining. So you do have other activities, but the challenge is that most of those activities and most of the rest of the employment is linked to, of course, the power station and mining happening. So it gives you quite the size of the challenge, because often we limit ourselves saying, well, we've got X amount of jobs in mining, and that's the quantum that we're working with. Of course, those jobs are the ones that are directly linked to the activities in the coal value chain. But but you have a challenge in the sense that you have to look at the entire span of the value chain and all the employments and the business activities, and arguably even government activities, which are here to serve the people who live in the area, who probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for for mining and the power stations. So it's an area where I think it's really important to understand that there is still diversity of activities, but they are linked heavily, not entirely, but heavily to the activities around the coal value chain. So really important to understand that. One of the key challenges as well, I feel, is that when we conceptualize what we think about in terms of just transition is what does it mean at a municipal level? What are the tools? What are we trying to achieve? And what can be achieved by the various parties? That's a key challenge in understanding how we go about a just transition. If we think about just transition and define that, effectively, I define that through three key levels. All right, three key dimensions of justice. The first one is procedural justice. That's your element of the process. Is it the assumption is that you're gonna only have a just outcome if you have a just process. All right. That's fundamental, and that's going to be effectively enacted at local level. And here municipalities have a crucial role through community forum, through the local action to stimulate that local engagement. That's something that has to happen at municipal level. Arguably you could say at the ward level, and that's really going to happen if it's facilitated by the municipal level. I'm showing just one slide. Hopefully you can see it, which kind of illustrate that those three dimensions: procedural justice. And here, of course, I think municipalities play a key role. Then you've got your distributive justice, which is how to deal with the direct impacts. And here, it's really around how do I create jobs, how do I create economic activity, how do I generate livelihood. And here, of course, again, municipalities have a crucial role to play in stimulating activities. This cannot be done, of course, solely by municipalities. It has to be jointly, particularly with provinces, but also at national level and all stakeholders in the private sector and so on. But it is a crucial element, as well, of saying how do I generate economic activity. And here, very clear that certainly in the case of Steve Tshwete and other coal-dependent municipalities, we're not looking at a transition from coal to renewable energy. We're looking at a transition from an existing economic structure, largely reliant on the coal value chain, to a new economic structure that's going to be a lot more diversified. And then renewable energy will play a role into that. But other opportunities, and I'll get to that in a second, also will have to play a much bigger role. So that diversification is important and crucial, and can happen, through various means when it comes to the interventions that can be taken up, particularly from local government. That's really looking at small business support. It's looking at job placement. It's looking at retraining and reskilling. You're looking at supporting special economic zones. And you're looking at using your local procurement as well to stimulate economic activities. And of course, many other ways, jointly with national government. One of the things as well is about providing a direction of travel. identifying those opportunities that you think as a municipality you want to develop in the municipality or in the province, and providing the support to those. And I think that can do a lot in channeling activity. And then the last aspect, last dimension is restoration. It's restorative justice. It's restoration. It's about how to deal with the historical problems. And we mentioned, how do we deal with things like the social and environmental impact, the competition for land use. For me, it strikes me that if you look at land for agricultural purposes, most of the best, the highly arable land, the best agricultural land in the country is in Mpumalanga, about half. And if you look at the top of the top, so there's 8 classes of land. If you just look at the top 2, we've already lost about 2% of that best land to mining, and then 75% of that best land is under mining rights at the moment, either for exploration or mining. Meaning that could really make or break, the activities in the agricultural sector. So how do we address this? Through zoning, through the authorization, through the environmental authorization processes. That has to be brought up. Either it's in control or it has a degree of responsibility at the municipal level. If the authorization obviously lies at the national level, in many cases, maybe DFFE or DMRE, or the Department of Water and Sanitation, then that can be stressed from the municipal level in terms of the requirements of this. So really important to understand that some of the powers that lay, I guess, at the municipal level. The last aspect that I wanted to bring in really is around looking at the opportunities and how to think about the opportunities. Of course, as I mentioned, renewable energy as a whole will play a role going forward. And certainly there are lots of efforts underway to develop renewable energy in Mpumalanga, and those should be pursued, definitely. But it's important, as we look at the direction of travel, to look at all the opportunities, at the spectrum of economic opportunities that could be developed in the province and in the municipality more specifically. And a non-exhaustive list looks at first leveraging, of course, the entirety of the infrastructure, the grid, as you mentioned, but of course, broadband, rail, road, water, and that can be to develop all sorts of activities. It's interesting that in the province, and particularly in the municipality, you have power generation, you have coal, and then you have other energy-intensive activities. Either tend to be heavy manufacturing, quite energy-intensive manufacturing, other activities that got nothing to do with the value chain itself, but again, quite electricity-intensive in many cases. All the factories that you find in Steve Tshwete in the industrial area. Agriculture and forestry is an opportunity in the province. It's a bit more difficult in the Steve Tshwete area in many cases, but certainly in the province, it's an opportunity. As I mentioned, a lot of the highly arable land is in the province, but Steve Tshwete can certainly play a role with some of the connected industries, around agro-processing, pulp and paper, for instance, even if the primary activities are not happening in Steve Tshwete. Turning the existing liabilities into assets, you're looking at mine rehabilitation, looking at opportunities around coal ash, for instance, are also possible using the current liabilities lying in the municipality area. Manufacturing overall is a big opportunity, I think, for Steve Tshwete, which there is already in the municipality, but you could look at changing that somewhat around machinery and equipment, components for renewable energy, for agriculture, for whatever that may be. And of course, the provision of public services is a big opportunity, and I think it was spoken for a lot, particularly around the free basic electricity. But overall, transport, energy, water, sanitation is an area where it's naturally within the spectrum of municipalities. And that will play a role in driving restoration, but also employment and economic activity. Of course, that has to be well resourced so that it is done effectively, and that's where alignment, of course, between tiers of government is critical. So these are some of the few opportunities. I mean, this is, as I said, not exhaustive in this respect. Where I think, and I conclude my points, the alignment between the activities is critical, but we pay too much attention in many respects, or maybe let me not put it that way. We pay not enough attention about what can be done at the local level. And a lot of the discussions are at national level, somewhat sometimes at provincial level, but not enough at the municipal level. Whereas there is actually a lot that can be done at municipal level, but it is premised on ensuring the financial sustainability and the financial viability of those municipalities. And that's why very integrated discussion is fundamental in this respect, to make sure that the interventions that are possible at the local level are supported and enabled. I think I'll leave it at this for now. As I said, it was very much a on-the-fly response. I hope it was structured enough, but I'm available for comments and questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gailo, for a very considered input and really speaking very well to the brief. I'm going to quickly jump in with a question before I hand over to the input from the Mpumalanga Provincial Government in GreenCape, because I think it might flow better from what you've just shared with us. So if you could identify one game changer intervention, what do you think that is? I mean, I think you've alluded to things that you see as critical to unlock a just transition, but maybe to put it out there.
Ish, one game changer.
You can have 2 or 3.
It's always difficult. I always say, there's no such thing as a low-hanging fruit, because if it really were a low-hanging fruit, someone would have done it. But okay, a couple of things. Okay, one I think which is critical. And as most kind of my last point, but I think it needs to be looked at, is the financial sustainability of municipalities. So the financial model of municipalities we know is unsustainable. I mean, it wasn't sustainable before any discussion on just transition, but it is going to make or break the contribution that municipalities can make going forward. So for me, it's really critical to look seriously at this, and how do we change that model. Then, I mean, in terms of the opportunities, I mean, in terms of job creation, I don't have an answer in terms of one that would really trigger a massive employment. I think if we can unlock, a new kind of manufacturing activity in Mpumalanga, I think for me that would really create nice spillovers, and I guess the third aspect, and that would be my last point, is to try and get agreement at the local level in terms of what's required, because that's something I didn't get a chance to say, but what's interesting to me, speaking to a variety of stakeholders in Steve Tshwete, that, to be honest, naively, I thought there would be a lot more synergies between what people were going to say in terms of what they want to see in the municipality. And surprisingly, that wasn't the case. Of course, everyone will tell you, I want to have economic activity, I want to have employment. But when you start digging, so, okay, well, what does that mean? What does it look like to you? you hear very different things, you know. And I think we need to start digging and saying, okay, what does an alternative economic strategy for the province look like that answers everybody's needs, you know. So I think there's no silver bullet, as I mentioned. You know, we need to look at all those opportunities and do a thorough job on that. Some of the work that we're trying to do actually at the moment, looking at those opportunities and see what's viable or not, and exploring them all. Not having, you know, a closed mind and really looking at all the opportunities is important in my mind. So that's what I would end with.
Thank you. I think that's a nice conclusion for your input, and I think also a nice opportunity segue to the presentation by the Mpumalanga Provincial Government and the work of the Green Economic Cluster. So over to you, and it will be interesting to see how what you propose is responding to some of the challenges that Gayla has highlighted. And I think it's Nati, you're going to kick off first, and then Johan will pick up if necessary. Yes, over to you.
Okay, let me do so. Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone in the meeting. My name is Nati Nkonyane. I'm with the Mpumalanga Provincial Government, the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, to be more specific. Yes, we actually appreciate this type of platforms because we believe they will assist us. I do have some slides, but I thought that in order for me to respond properly to what was already presented by the other speakers, let me rather respond without using the PowerPoint presentation.
But then we must see your face. Then we must see your face, please.
Yeah, I'm sure the bandwidth will be able to carry that. Can you see me?
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So as a province, we decided to set up what we call the Green Cluster, or the Mpumalanga Green Economic Cluster. This is 5 years of work. We conceptualized this over 5 years ago. And we talked to a number of stakeholders across the board. You know, to sell this type of ideas sometimes take a little bit of a while. So we did speak to a number of players who are operating in the province. What actually happens is that in the province, you would have stakeholders that are working in the space. You've got clusters, organized clusters that are in the space with different names. Obviously, you would have clusters that are that calls themselves that are in the energy space. You have other clusters that are looking at other sorts, at different other type of work that relates to this. So we engaged all these clusters because we wanted all these clusters to be involved with this type of work. If you know the history of Mpumalanga, you'll know that many years ago, I think 15, 16 years ago, there was once an attempt to coordinate this aspect. We used to have something that was called the Greening Mpumalanga pilot project. 15, 16 years ago, but it didn't take off the ground. And the reason for that was specifically the fact that we are so fragmented. There are a whole lot of things that are happening. Different stakeholders are doing their own things, but we do not have a platform that would coordinate all these initiatives. And I think, I don't want to say that structure failed, but it didn't achieve that purpose. So a few years ago, we realized that that was progressive thinking, and we need to, you know, put that thinking again into cause. And then we decided to approach different stakeholders, and GreenCape was one of the players that we thought would assist us in doing this. Because of the work that obviously they are doing in the Western Cape, and we saw that as something that needs to be replicated in Mpumalanga so that we can coordinate all these players that I'm talking about. I mean, earlier on, Eskom was presenting, and you could already pick up that there is fragmentation. I mean, they will tell you their stakeholders is the DTIC, they would, talk to national stakeholders, the Council for Geoscience, and all of those stakeholders. But what we have since started to do in putting together this cluster, we have reached out to all those players, and we are happy to announce that we are signing an agreement with the Council for Geoscience, and not only the Council for Geoscience, but a number of other players. We are working very closely with the CSIR lately. We are working with a number of other research institutions, both in the province and outside of the province. We are looking at how we can coordinate this work through what we call the Mpumalanga cluster. So the cluster itself will look at all these different clusters that are operating in the province. I've already said that there are clusters like the bioenergy cluster. They are focusing on energy. There are other clusters that are looking at different things. Circular economy cluster, they are looking into water issues and other issues, perhaps like your sustainable agriculture. So we are trying to bring all those clusters together. They will be coordinated by the Mpumalanga Green Cluster, which we have already formed. So this cluster will start, it's already in motion. We have established what we call an advisory committee that will be working very closely with the structure, which is now the cluster itself in the form of an NPC, something that looks like GreenCape. So it's an initiative of the government. But why we decided to come up with an NPC is precisely for the reason that sometimes stakeholders find it difficult to work with government. So we want somebody who will coordinate all of us, and we believe that structure is the correct vehicle that will do that quite efficiently. So we are looking at coordinating all the stakeholders, which will include your national government, which will include your private sector. We are following what we call a triple helix model. In terms of this, it will bring together government, your private sector, and your business. And we are working with a number of stakeholders towards this, and we are overwhelmed with the interest that have been shown by the different stakeholders in working with us with regards to this. So some of the issues that I've got something that is disturbing me a bit. Can I just switch off the video a little bit? Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So this cluster is going to coordinate how we envisage the cluster. The cluster is obviously going to look, we decided to prioritize sectors. The sectors that we are prioritizing, because sometimes we have a temptation of talking your just energy transition without actually looking at paying attention. I think Galo started to tease out those issues. We feel it is important for us to look at just transition holistically. Water issues are issues that are very, very critical. As much as we talk energy, but we are saying we are a water scarce province. We need to look at our water resources. And there is already work that we are doing around this, or talking to some stakeholders that are doing work around this. We are looking at your circular economy. We are looking at your smart agriculture, obviously sustainable agricultural methods. And we are also looking at the issue of skills development. I think this cannot be overemphasized. The earlier speaker did speak to this to say there will be a lot of jobs that will be lost. So we need to think very, very clearly about what is going to happen. And we think we need to have an aggressive reskilling program to make sure that those people that will lose employment will be able to get employment. So we are talking with other stakeholders with regards to this who can provide this type of training. And while I said earlier on, there has been a gap with some of the stakeholders that are critical, like your electricity utility. But we have since tried to close this gap. We will be taking a number of meetings, consultative meetings with both your municipalities in the province as well as other players in the form of your Escoms, your SASOLs, and all of the mines that are operating in the province. And we are very happy that they are embracing working with the provincial government. So we hope we will be doing all this work under the ambit of the cluster. And Galo spoke to some opportunities earlier on, and we have since talking to the different stakeholders, we have since, sort of come up with some opportunities, and we already see any opportunities within your renewable space. In terms of your solar, in terms of wind, I know Eskom was talking solar gas at some point. Yes, even wind, there is an opportunity for wind in the province. And there are some studies that are being done by some of our partners, and they are indicating that there is a potential for wind energy. So this is something else that we're looking at. We are also looking at your whole issue of your green hydrogen. I know this is very much a new issue that is on the table, but we're looking into this because we have a lot of biomass. And if you look at your biomass, we are looking at the biomass value chain, and we believe the issue of hydrogen will be critical, particularly your green hydrogen. So this is one of the space that we're looking at. And I'm happy to say there are a lot of people who are interested in talking with the province around all these opportunities that we're talking about. Biogas being one of those, your solid waste to energy, issues of battery storage. Of course, Eskom spoke about these initiatives, but we're getting a lot of people from even outside of the country who are beginning to talk to the province directly. So it becomes even more important for us to form those partnerships with all the different spheres of government, as well as our private sector counterparts around all these opportunities. Smart agriculture is one of the issues that we're looking at. I know Galo earlier on spoke about the issue of coexistence between your mining and agriculture. This is one issue that is of concern to us, because we are an agriculture province. As much as we have all these mineral resources, but we're an agriculture province, and we believe we still remain a food basket for the country, and we believe that food is critical, and we must make sure that there is a balance between these mining activities and the energy activities. So we are also looking at issues of your circular economy, issues of your land rehabilitation, and looking at how we can use the land after mining. Looking at your water, reclaiming water for reuse, particularly in agriculture. We are talking to people, we are talking to some stakeholders who wants to do this type of work, or who are interested in working with the provincial government. So the local sphere will be very, very critical, because all these things are happening in the local, will be happening in the local space. So part of the engagement process, we will be going to our municipalities, and we are already planning this type of engagements with both the municipalities and other stakeholders. There are meetings that are scheduled, which we will take, and we believe that it will be important for all of us to speak in one voice in the province. We are also looking at infrastructure issues, of course, issues of your soft infrastructure, things like your education, skills development, reskilling. These are some of the initiatives that we are paying attention to. And we have facilities in the form of the TVET colleges, and we want to sort of place these facilities in a position to can be able to deliver on the skills that are required by the economy, particularly in the green sector. So we are looking into this, and we are talking to other institutions that are outside of the province and that are outside of the borders of the country. So there is a lot of interest in this kind of work. There are issues with transport and logistic issues, very, very critical. Your transport issues, I think Galo did speak to this aspect, but also the issues of your manufacturing. We are a manufacturing province. There are a lot of heavy industries in our province, and we believe that we did develop what we call an industrial strategy for the province. And part of our industrialization agenda is to reignite our manufacturing. And perhaps we believe that a green economy presents us with opportunities to look at what we can do in terms of manufacturing components, in terms of, we are already entering into that space, and that is what we want. We want to work very closely with the municipalities, particularly Steve Tshwete is better positioned because of the heavy industries that are happening within that area. So there are discussions that we'll be taking around all these issues in terms of that. But also the issue of your smart cities. I think the speaker from the municipality did speak to this at some point. Your green buildings and your smart cities, very, very critical for us. So these are programs that we want to spearhead through the cluster within the provincial government. So in the nutshell, the cluster will drive all these issues. The cluster is already there. We have registered the NPO, or rather the company, the cluster entity, which will coordinate all these things on behalf of the provincial government, and it will be driven through the provincial government. We are currently receiving a lot of support from GreenCape at the moment and GIZ, and we are very, very grateful of that partnership, and we are hopeful that in few years to come, we, as a province, we will be in a position to, account for greater things that are coming out of this work and the coordination that we'll be doing through the cluster. I thank you.
Thank you, Nati. And quickly before I pass over to Johan, that was going to speak, I think, a little bit on the energy-specific interventions. Just a quick question from my side. If the cluster is going to be engaging with municipalities and speaking to Gayla's point about the importance of unlocking local voice and agency, is the cluster going to engage with municipalities initially as a collective, or is the intention for the cluster to have dedicated engagements with individual municipalities? I think it's useful perhaps for the municipalities on the call to get more clarity on that as well.
I'm not sure I got your question quite clearly.
Nati, I'm interested whether your engagement with municipalities, whether you're going to engage them initially as a group, as a collective, or is the intention that you're going to be having in-depth engagements with individual municipalities to see how best you can support them?
Oh yes, we are already. I think there are a couple of municipalities that we have already scheduled meetings with, and we will be engaging almost all the municipalities within the province. But just to answer your question, we will engage municipalities individually, and thereafter we would have some platforms where we engage as a group, but we want to pay special focus on each one of the municipalities, because obviously they would have different needs. So that's the approach that we will be undertaking. Thanks.
Thank you, Yuan. You indicated that you're going to be contributing some additional inputs, particularly on electricity and interventions that might assist municipalities in their future sustainability and low carbon initiatives. We've got very little time if we still want to allow for a few questions from the floor. So think how you can shorten your presentations. Always the problem if you're last in the line.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm just checking if everyone can see my screen currently.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll definitely keep it short. And the specific topic I'm going to touch on is sort of increasing the ease of doing business in the Mpumalanga area, and it's all about enabling mechanisms to show that green economic growth within the energy sector specifically. And yeah, it's basically the enabling mechanisms, and there's 3 key steps that should be focused on: the small-scale embedded generation regulations, renewable energy policy, and then wheeling as well. These will drive jobs and investment in the green economy in the area. For these 3 key steps I mentioned here, we as GreenCape and within partnership with various other organizations have drafts of all of these available to share and take municipalities through those steps of taking it through council and endorsed by the municipality as an enabling mechanism. So maybe just a quick touch on SSEG regulations. So the big focus here is driving a customer response. So there is the AMEU SALGA SSEG resource pack that is available, and it covers everything from policy and requirements for embedded generation, the application form, the contracts and so forth, the process flow of allowing SSEG at the municipality, and also support on tariff design. And basically what this covers is that it learns from all the experiences from other municipalities. So it's a pack that has been used and updated and is used by most municipalities across the country. So I know in Mpumalanga there's about 4 municipalities currently using or has SSEG regulations in place, and all those that don't have, we encourage to engage with us so that we can support you in making these part of the policies at your municipality. And then the second, maybe just a comment on Mr. Kubevu's on the financial drain for municipalities for SSEG regulations, tariffs and losing sales from the municipality. There's also mechanisms to make sure that your tariffs are cost reflective and that your that the impact on the balance sheet is not as bad as it should be. And yeah, if you want to know more, we could definitely have engagements, and there's other organizations that also support with that and does training on these type of development of tariffs. So I would encourage looking at a cost of supply study and so forth to make the impact on municipal revenue low. Then I'm going to touch on wheeling as well, but wheeling is also an important mechanism to ensure that the impact of solar panels and renewable energy in your distribution area doesn't impact your revenue. Then the second item I would just want to focus on is the renewable energy policy. So another enabling mechanism for a green energy transition. And what this would be is if you have SSEG regulations already in place and you have a wheeling framework and you have climate change strategy and you have ambitions of self-generation for, let's say, government buildings or for sales, or you want to purchase from IPPs, this renewable energy policy would be the overarching policy to strengthen all of these other regulations, frameworks, and strategies. And it's an enabling mechanism to make sure that it simplifies the way of doing business with the municipality and strengthens the stance of the municipality on renewable energy. Yeah, and it's we have a draft version that we can share with municipalities, and similar to the SECG, we encourage you to reach out, or we will be reaching out to you as well to share our draft and take you through and customize it specifically for your municipality. And then the third topic is on wheeling. So this is a mechanism to make sure that the municipal network doesn't, renewable penetration on the municipal network doesn't affect your balance sheet. So wheeling is basically a financial transaction representing the transportation of third-party electrical energy over the distribution network, which allows for the third-party supplier to sell electrical energy to a customer at the customer's point of supply. So it's fairly non-discriminating and fairly simple. This is just a depiction of how it would work, where a generator would transport their energy across the municipal network to the customer. The customer will have a PPA, power purchase agreement with the generator, allowing the tariffs, and then the generator and the municipal network will have a wheeling tariff that would enable that transaction. It's almost a method of bypassing Eskom in a sense, but it's not the intention. The intention is renewable energy and allowing customers to purchase renewable energy from their preferred suppliers. The increase of licensing thresholds to 100 megawatts creates a large opportunity for wheeling in the renewable energy sector. And I think in the conscience of time, I might just skip some of these last slides on wheeling and open up the floor for questions later on if needed. But the support that we can give specifically focus on the green economy topics like SECG, wheeling and renewable energy in general, and we can support on technical and financial and management areas, and also with policy support for all three of these topics, and also stakeholder engagement, interactions with the council, with industry and customers if there's some topics that are challenging. Please, I think in terms of funding to allow this, I don't think the municipalities need to worry about funding with this. The opportunity is already there for them to go through these processes and make the enable the green economy within the area by talking to us and help. Then we can support them and capacitate them to take them through these processes to ensure that the ease of doing business in their area. Thank you very much.
Maybe just one quick question for me before I open it to the floor. If you could advise a municipality, or to you view, what is the one big game changer? If they only have so much money, so much capacity, what is the first thing that they should do if they want to shift to more renewable energy, integrate more renewable energy, but still look after their bottom line? One thing.
Well, I would say it was wheeling. Because of the large opportunity and the fact that it won't impact their balance sheet, but the wheeling is the next step of this small scale embedded generation, and that's the one that impacts the revenue. So the first step would be SECG regulation, and then focus on wheeling, and then make wheeling the flagship in that, because the same regulations apply in wheeling for SECG, so it is the precursor to that. But wheeling is definitely the large opportunity, specifically now with a 100 megawatt cap potentially. The 1 megawatt cap rising to 100 megawatts.
Okay, so on that note, I'm going to open the floor for questions. You can either put up your hand or post something in the chat, but I think Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Louise. Thank you to all the speakers. Johan, it was interesting to hear what you've been saying, but I'm going to pose a question now, which is, I missed the name of the municipal speaker because I joined a few minutes late. I didn't catch his name, Louise, but the first speaker, he...
Mr. Kubefa from Steve Tshwete.
Yeah, he said very clearly that they need support from province and national, and Nati, you were saying that that's where your work is and offering support, but what he raised was the need for support and the need for financial support, and Gaylor reiterated that municipalities need financial support. The model isn't sustainable, and also raised the issue of alignment. So I'm not sure that I've heard how that will shift, because there are solutions here on the table, but we've heard very clearly from the municipality, and I've had conversations with other municipal officials in Mpumalanga and Steve Tshwete, that where they raise the same issues. So in theory it looks good, but I'm questioning how we change it in practice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I think I'm going to allow 2 or 3 questions, and then I'm going to open it up for the panel. And it would be nice if the panelists actually share their screens. I think it would be easy to facilitate quick responses to the questions. There's a hand up from Deneo. So please ask your question, and I'm just going to check the chat as well. So please, if I can ask the panelists to...
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is directed to Mr. Johan Strydom. I'm very much interested in the wheeling section part of his presentation. He mentioned much about the availability of the watts that's there. So my question is, would there be opportunities for the people on the ground, entrepreneurial opportunities for people on the ground, so that they can learn on this process and then trade with the from the municipality, so that the green energy could be there even to the most poorest people in our community. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask the panelists to respond. Nati, maybe if we can start with you, then Gaylor, then Ntokoza, and then Johan. There are 2 questions. The one is around alignment and financial support, and then there's a more technical question relating to wheeling that maybe Johan can pick up. So Nati, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of alignment, it's critical, and that is perhaps the reason why we are establishing a cluster of this nature. And we believe that it will assist us with the alignment that has not been there. We know different people have been doing different things within our space, and we want to be in charge. We want to take control of what is happening around us, which is why we have also solicited the assistance of the other stakeholders, the other partners in the form of your GreenCape. We understand they have expertise in some areas of the work. And I think Johan was just presenting now, and he said there are opportunities to support municipalities. We can direct them to, we are looking at how we can sort of direct certain things, and even within the provincial government. I think if there are clear plans on what the municipalities intend to do, apart from, leveraging on other financial supports that are out there, I think from the province side, if there is a clear vision of where municipalities wants to go with regards to this, it's important to all of us, and we think we will be able, and we believe that this type of engagements that we want to take with municipalities will assist us to get closer to those realities and see how we could work together, be it support in terms of your non-financial support, or even financial support in some instances. We can basically look into that. And the reason why we are putting this cluster, we want this cluster to be able to also secure funding, mobilize funding from the provincial fiscus, but also looking at other climate finance that are available out there. And we believe that if we have this coordinated vehicle, we will be able to galvanize support from different players, and we will be, I'm talking financial and non-financial support, but also from the provincial fiscus. We believe that if there are clear programs, there are clear plans, we would be able to consider certain things that we can partner in delivering. Thank you.
Galo, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, look, couldn't agree more. As I mentioned, the issue of coordination is critical. And that was one of the key points we made already a few years ago when we did the piece of work around the vulnerability assessments and resilience plans for, at the time, the Department of Environmental Affairs and the Economic Development Department, was the need for an entity to guide and coordinate implementation. And I think that's quite clear that we need that central body to get the just transition coordinated. And that's important because the mandates are quite complicated once you start looking at it, between the three fields. Now you could even say 4 fields of government, because you've got 2 levels of municipalities. So kind of 4 spheres of government, and within even one single level of government. Even if you just take national level, it's complicated already in terms of the mandates. So I think that entity to drive this is important. We'll see if the Presidential Climate Commission plays that role at the political level, but we would still need an entity to drive implementation on the ground. The cluster could be that for Mpumalanga, but of course, the just transition is a bigger question than just Mpumalanga. So it's really critical that we have that driving force. The question is who then, who would drive it, and then where would you locate it, what kind of powers and so forth. This is not an easy question to answer, but I think we can't get away from having some sort of driving force that's going to really make sure that we move forward, and that harness the resources that are being put forward by everyone. As I always say, there's no shortage of funding for just transition at this point in time. Everybody wants to throw money at just transition in some shape or form, but we need to make sure it goes into the right things. And I think having a central body that does that is important. And then my last point is to make sure that we implement the right interventions. That we really kind of fund what needs to be funded. That we use the fund adequately, be it through procurement, being through whatever it may be, and that we identify the right opportunities. It actually makes a lot of impact when you put forward the opportunities. I think we tend to assume we don't need to do that, but actually putting the direction of travel and say, this is where we want to go as a municipality, as a province, as a country, plays a big role in the minds of business, of investors, of potential funders, and in society as a whole. So I think that's my 2 cents in terms of having a bit of a coordinated body that still needs to be shaped, and it can be at different levels. Certainly, the cluster will play into that quite well, I think.
Well, thank you, Gail. I know we're running slightly over time, but we've had actually very little opportunity for questions. Mr. Kubefu, I would like to ask you once again, my prerogative as facilitator, what would you like from the green economic cluster? If you can ask 1 or 2 things from the cluster, what would the things be that you would want the cluster to assist your municipality with? You've heard Nati saying that, you know, there's a whole lot of interventions that they can help with, you know, circular economy, waste management, smart agriculture, new manufacturing opportunities. But if you've, in your capacity as the head of electricity in Steve Tshwete, what would be your game changer thing that you would ask the green economic cluster for?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I think the first thing that on my presentation I indicated that we feel like we need some more assistance in terms of the funding, obviously to secure funding. We've got programs that we've already in the pipeline, but we tend to struggle with the funding. Particularly, I indicated the issue of the free basic energy or free basic services. We wanted to supplement our free basic services with a free basic alternative energy, where we have to put the PV system on our households. So there's a big challenge at the moment to secure funding for that. We've done numerous applications to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, but even today we haven't got any funding. So I think that that's the most important one, because if you can able to do that, that goes hand in hand with the small scale embedded generator. We've done a lot in terms of that. We even created policies, but we still have a problem in terms of the tariff determination when you look at small scale embedded generators. So I think on that one, I would say we still need some more assistance in terms of the capacity building, so that we can understand in terms of determining the tariffs. I think those are the 2 areas where we feel like we can get more from the cluster. We've done a lot in terms of the other policies. We also did the supply study, cost of supply study. Obviously, it was excluding the small scale embedded generator. That is why I said we need more on that one. And then we also, maybe that's one thing that I need to highlight before I step down. I heard my other colleagues, the other speaker was talking about the wheeling. I think we've tried that in the past as the municipality with our local companies who are generating power. We had some numerous problems. Of course, it was technical problems. But I think with the new technologies, we can able to overcome that. I agree with him to say is an easiest way to go, because it doesn't impact on your balance sheet as a municipality. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Johan. Quick input from your end, and then I'm going to hand back to Silas to do the wrap up for us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, maybe just a few comments is on the purpose of a cluster organization is to bring together the various stakeholders and identify the barriers and close them. So whether it's funding, whether it's technical knowledge, or whether it's capacity building to the municipality, that is our purpose of figuring out and solving those problems and making it easier and creating pipelines of solutions. So that's the purpose of the cluster, and wherever the targets would be, that is where our focus would be. Yeah. Thanks.
And then before, my apologies, I know there's some questions that haven't been answered. It's quite clear that we need to have another session like this, and we'll be talking to Saga about setting something up where we can delve a bit deeper in some of these aspects that have been touched on today. So Silas, at this point, I'm going to hand over to you for the wrap up. And we've captured the questions, and maybe we can see whether we can reply directly to people that have raised them in the chat. Silas, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Louise. And yes, indeed, I wanted to mention that, yeah, there is a need for further discussion and engagement on these subjects. I've noted question around willing. I can assure you that it was definitely not deliberated accordingly. There is a lot more that we need to talk about it. But anyway, as you said, it's a separate discussion altogether for another engagement on this, on the willing and other questions that were raised. However, I would like to say thank you very much, Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency. We appreciate your inputs. We've noted the emphasis that you mentioned on working together, collaboration, coordination, as well as cooperation among different spheres of government, be it 3 spheres government or 4 spheres of government, splitting Munich in terms of metros as well as smaller municipalities. But anyway, we do appreciate that, and indeed you are spot on. There is a need for more cooperation and working together, as we are all government. We are all government, private, as well as non-government organization, and we are all in this just transition. We've noted the 3 key steps: the SSG regulation, the renewable energy policy, and the willing. As I said, willing, we need to talk about it. It's something that I think there is a need for a separate engagement, so that colleagues can get a clear understanding in terms of plans, both from national level as well as the local level, and the work that SALGA, together with its stakeholders, are doing in the willing framework. And also, Steve Tshwete, thank you very much, my brother. We have noted your plans as a Munich. We have noted the plans you have in terms of bringing some of the renewable energy projects in your municipal areas. And we have also noted the request that support, rather, that you would like from other stakeholders. And most importantly, I must applaud you for the energy loss of 7%, which you are right, is within the tolerable range from the NESA's guideline. We appreciate that, and well done for that, as well as the cost of supply studies. Also, Eskom in absentia, the just energy transition, JET plans, we've noted that the reskilling, repurposes of some of the coal-fired power stations, injection of plans to bring in solar photovoltaic, the wind and other sources of energy. That is much appreciated, as well presented. We really appreciate that. Having said that, I would like to say thank you to all the participants for your attendance and good questions that you asked. We noted them, and I can assure you that we're going to share the presentations as well as the webinar notes with all of you, as long as you have put your email address as well as your name on the chat box, as you kept on being reminded throughout the webinar. Thank you very much to the presenters as well as the panelists for your insight. And thanks to you, Louise, by the way, for such a wonderful facilitation of the webinar. Well done. We appreciate your effort. Lauren, organizing and arranging this webinar has not been easy, I know, and thank you very much. And again, Desia, Matumba in Mpumalanga, Salga office, as well as your colleagues, we appreciate your effort and support in coordinating this webinar on the provincial part of it. And to all participants, please, you can request for more information, or you can email us through your questions and suggestions. And we assure you that there are a lot more webinars that are actually coming, which that will be communicated with all of you. And to all of you, yes, thank you very much. Your contribution towards the success of this webinar has not gone unnoticed. And I repeat again, we'll have a separate discussion with stakeholders in terms of another workshop focusing on Mpumalanga in terms of some of the areas that emanated, which due to time were not adequately dealt with. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.